you pivoted towards, drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, and how to work on, getting rid of the shame. So then I do that. Yep. But then you go from the harm reduction, because at the end of the day, the shit's getting in the way.
Totally.
So I'll be like, okay, we get rid of shame. Yep. It's the same thing with cutting or self-harm. Okay.
Self-harm. Yep.
Say trichotillomania and picking eyebrows, things like that, right? People are ashamed. Same thing as intrusive thoughts of suicide, harm to others.
Absolutely.
Get rid of the shame. Well, now it doesn't have control of us. So now that big bad wolf is scary and it's a monster. But now if we train it, now it's just one of our pets and we can just chill with it and sit with it.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah. I'll share a YouTube video. It's
great little, I love it.
Yeah, supposedly it's a Native American story. So gotta put citations in that. And so how do we remove the shame and then get them away and move it into a harm reduction? Because, hey, man, we got stuff to do. And I'll pivot with some of my boys, because a lot of athletes, doesn't matter what gender, masculinity, dominance, we're not going to touch emotions. I'll say, but you're going to do the drugs and alcohol now. And to me, that's the biggest coward move you could do. What are you talking about? I ain't no coward. Well, you're running from doing all the work with me and you're treating everyone else like shit. Well, that seems like a coward move just because you don't want to go inside. Before I get to that, obviously I built a deep connection and they have good faith that no matter what, I'm going to lead them into a good direction.
Just first session, just like, you're a coward. Like, what?
First minute of work.
First session, you a punk.
All right. Well, never doing this again.
I lift more than you. You a punk.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
I just weigh 120. What am I supposed to do?
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. I got one of the strongest women in America that's on my squad now, and she's tiny. So she whooped my ass. She's tiny. She's squatting like 500 pounds. It's fucking nuts.
Jesus. My back hurts thinking about that.
Oh my God. She can put up some weight. All right. So I like to do that with my really masculine dudes, because I'm like, how is this masculine? Running away from it. But also the TV fucks us up, man. All you see on TV, I hate it. If something bad, they have a bad day, they go get alcohol. Something bad happens, they get anxiety, they have an argument with their partner, I go get some alcohol. Every single time something bad happens. So we're teaching people through cinema on how to do these unhealthy coping mechanisms instead of doing things like this, where we're talking and communicating, sitting with one another. Spencer just had me watch a magnificent clip from Sopranos. Go figure, Sopranos. Where these very masculine men are sitting and look at each other. Hey, man, how come you didn't love me? We asked his young son, Christopher, metaphorical son, hey, you thinking about suicide? What's going on? You okay? You having intrusive thoughts? The kid's like, oh, I'm not having those. That's for mental midgets. So that's the word he used.
He did.
And then Tony's like, no, man, for real, how you doing? Those moments there are how we healthily cope. But the thing is, everyone's so scared to be vulnerable. That's why I affirmed you being vulnerable earlier, because no one else wants to do it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And the other piece, right, and this is going to tie back to the clip of, this is why I picked these two clips of the young Daisy, right, with the mom, and then now is, I think people forget that or just don't make the connection, that we learn how to regulate and be with our emotions based off our parents, right? Like our parents, I mean, talk about again, right? That attachment piece, right? If you have a parent, right, that is constantly shaming you, constantly or neglectful, right? Just not there at all. How is that child supposed to learn any affect regulation? They're not going to, right? So then, of course, right, as they grow up and they move through adolescence and they move through teenage years and into adulthood, they never learned. That was never modeled for them. They weren't having these conversations, right, with their parents. They weren't seeing that. And so again, right, it makes a ton of sense that it would be a lot easier for them. And the only way that they know how to cope is to pick up cocaine, right? Or to drink or to cut or to, right?
Healthy relationship, unhealthy. I mean.
Yeah, healthy relationships, right? So like a huge piece of, and this even gets into nervous system work, right? Like I think there is this like huge trend on Instagram and TikTok in particular around like nervous system regulation and regulate your nervous system. And like people, self-regulation comes second. Co-regulation comes first, right? Because again, we come into the world being born as babies, having to co-regulate, having to. We cannot survive on our own. We have to regulate with our caregivers. So co-regulation is what actually paves the way to self-regulation. So again, right, in those really kind of early childhood years, if we don't have that co-regulation, right, that connection, that attachment and attunement with our parents, holy crap. Well, of course, right? Things like, again, these creative coping mechanisms or maladaptive coping mechanisms are going to take over. So that's the only other point that I wanted to make.
Damn. That's all I can say on that one, Spence. You saw my face. Spence knows my faces. I'm like, God, there's some good shit there.
Like,
that's the good cocaine. That girl cooking with
that's the mental cocaine.
She cooking with that hot spoon, you know.
Oh my God.
That spoon hot as shit, boy. I tell you.
I feel like we need a disclaimer on this show that like no cocaine is present. Like
no, not yet.
Oh no.
Like, actually, no cocaine is present.
You know,
You're right.
Not on your side, you know.
Huh?
Correction. We don't condone any violence on this podcast or any drug uses.
We do not like cocaine on this podcast,
but we love weed.
All right, sure. Yeah. Sure.
So pause. That co-regulation is magnificent. Magnificent what you just said. And then leads into the regulation piece, you know, individual work. We're going to talk about racial shit real quick.
Okay. All right, bringing it in. Yep.
Well, because a lot of these black and brown families, depending on where you're coming from, lower socioeconomic families.
Fair.
Again, it's dominance, masculinity. Yeah. So volatility, that's what wins. That's what allows you to survive. So you're not really taught these depths of emotionality and these things. So I'm with my mother and my father, dominance. That's all it is. And so, right, Pops has got a short fuse. Mom's short fuse, right? They said that they were bipolar, not bipolar. And so they'll get labeled with borderline personality disorder, though.
Yes.
That's what they'll be labeled with because they're hot and cold with their emotions. And there's reasons for that. And so all my kids of color by white clinicians will get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, when in actuality it's just trauma. It's just trauma. And, you know, they shame the kids, and they don't want to help and work with the kids, or they'll label them with ODD, oppositional defiant disorders, what they label me as.
Yeah. And
so you're also going to get a lot of autistic people that fall into this too, because they can't regulate or they might do a little self-harming. Then we shame them. We label them as borderline, but they're actually autistic.
Yeah.
And then folks of color, we never get labeled with anything close to autism. And so to help deal, I'm talking about this because also people of color, the substance abuse is pretty high, but also amongst folks that are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, tons of self-medications with alcohol, marijuana, you know, mushrooms. You're going to see a lot of that stuff. That's because they're trying to disconnect and dissociate.
Yeah.
They're trying to stop all the thoughts. And so I'm like, hey, man, I ain't going to shame it, but we got to find better ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe their parents weren't the best at it. I know mine weren't. Pretty good now. But, you know, still, Spence goes, you know, maybe. But I'm not the best at it either.
Still learning.
I'm a grown-ass man. But the thing is with you, I'm not going to ask you weight and height, but I'm sure you're not 6'2", 350 pounds. So when I get a little mad, it gets a little scary. And, you know, my coworkers might get a little like, oh, shit, Nas is mad. Well, yeah, because you guys keep saying this bullshit. So I have to regulate quicker. Now we're going to pivot and talk about women's issues. Y'all got to regulate quick as shit too, right? Because, you know, oh, you're a bitch. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're aggressive. And so you got to regulate pretty quick too. And if you're a woman of color, even more so.
I was just going to say, yeah.
If you're a dude, large dude like me, then you definitely do, because now they're going to call the police on me, which has happened. So I've learned as I got older, like, oh, shit. Right? Spencer doesn't see me going crazy like my dad every once in a while. I'll be like, you know, I'll kill you. I love my dad. I got all the good and the bad from him, all the good and the bad. It's funny, real quick pause. I tell my students, hey, you think you're paying for this master's degree, but most of the education comes from my father. No degree, 9 years in the penitentiary. And I said, so just to let you know, this is what you paid for. but it's some of the most magnificent healings they're ever going to get and teachings in their life. I just know how to word it and get to where we need to get.
Totally.
Magnificent scene. I'm glad you brought this up with addiction and drug usage. Very, very correlated with our population.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's pivot over to Bobby.
Billy.
I know. You know I like saying. You know I like saying Bobby.
And well, time, sure.
Yeah, no.
So Billy,
Billy Bob.
Concert.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Having a concert. Then all of a sudden they spot this man in a plaid suit jacket and get really pissed off and just get off stage. Come to find out, it's his pop-up. It's his dad. And obviously we see that his dad left him and his brother, left the whole family, and left them a guitar. One of the things and then he throws that guitar on the ground, say, "Fuck you, Dad." How about that? Real punk rock before punk rock was a thing. So just saying. Yeah. And kind of coordinate with the scene that the next scene with that is that then we see him doing cocaine as he finds out his girlfriend is pregnant.
Yeah. So he knew that they were having a baby, but it's kind of this like it's the piece around his father, right? Finding that and to give a little backstory, the dad left their family, abandoned them, and claimed that he moved to Georgia, right? Which is like, 8 states away. Come to find out he was literally across town the whole time with like another wife. So that then is really the start of his substance use, drinking, drugs, and then yes, he and the woman that he's with, they actually do end up getting married. Find out that they're pregnant. And this is then the piece of, right before that he finds out. And then that kind of goes into just this. And you see, I didn't show this part, but there's this clip where like he finds out and the realization hits him, right? And it's like, oh boy, right? Like this is really happening, right? Like I'm going to be a dad. And so, yeah, I mean, there's right off the bat, only because I have so many clients that also deal with abandonment, whether it's a mom, a dad, a different primary caregiver, but abandonment can stir up a lot of things, right? And this was one that clearly impacted him. Again, we can't really sit in this position of saying, "Oh yeah, that's it," right? That's the sole reason why he, goes off on a binger and becomes an addict. No, this stuff is really complicated. But again, it is absolutely a pivotal piece of what he's navigating.
I'm gonna speak real quick, then I'm gonna kick it right back to you, boss. Spence, strategic, but we did an old clip, Mike Tyson biopic TV show, and I love always referring to this. Is when you hit the kid after you've been working a while, it's just, man, you talk about how good they're doing this and that, right? And they'll be like, it's you, the therapist. You did it. You did this. I didn't do shit. I met with you 6 hours in like 5 months, probably 3 months. It's all you.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Check out the full episode on our channel and anywhere you find podcasts. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Whoop whoop.